just so you can see who we are now. Can't see no you're in me. I've seen this all before. It's a fight that starts and ends with you. No, I don't think I was the reason for it. And as the days go on, now we tried and fell it far. Oh, your size of me. Now I can see it's here, wearing me down. My back's against the wall, pulling me down. Now just so you can see who we are now. Can't see no your enemy. I'm out of breath, exhausted by you. But the truth is, it says so much more about you than it does me. Your size of me, now I can see it's here, wearing me down. My back's against the wall, pulling me down. Now just so you can see who we are now. Can't see no your enemy. Hey, Lord, I lift my hands, I give all the praise to you. Everything I am, you gave me the strength to do. Hey, Lord, I lift my hands, Lord, I lift my hands, I give all the praise to you. This is my response for making me brand new. Hey, Lord, I can feel your presence, putting all your peace in me. Lord, I can feel revival, breaking all the captives free. And though it sounds crazy, man, I used to hate me, till I met somebody who told me how he made me, how he died to save me. And if you want the same thing, all you gotta do is just say, Lord, I lift my hands, I give all the praise to you. Yeah, yeah, everything I am, everything I am, you gave me the strength to do. Yeah, you do. Lord, I lift my hands, Lord, I lift my hands, I give all the praise to you. This is my response for making me brand new. And I can't help it, I'm just being real. I just walk up to the mic and tell y'all how I feel. Y'all think I'm religious, I'm just trying to eat a meal. But I don't live on bread alone, you hear it in my zeal. Down bad, but you got me better. G-O-D, that's the best 3 letters. Where you got me moving, I'ma need Rosetta. Keep your head up. Hey, Lord, I lift my hands, I give all the praise to you. Everything I am, you gave me the strength to do. Lord, I lift my hands, I give all the praise to you. This is my
Hello, guys. Good morning. Welcome to C3. Stand and worship with us. seated for a minute. Hello, welcome to C3. My name's Sarah. I'm one of the worship leaders here, and we're so glad that you guys are here this morning. And if you're new here, then welcome. If you're not new here, well, I guess still welcome if you're not new here. But if you're not new, then you know just kind of how things work. So we have this app or this little thing that you can scan here. It's called the Hub, and on there, that's where you can find all the different things going on, or you can just get to know a little bit about more of what we do here. And one of the biggest things coming up is our backpack giveaway, and that is on August 14th at 4 p.m. at the South Point Park. And there's always a huge turnout, so there's backpacks up front that you can grab and fill up, or you can drop them off if you've already got them. And like I said, there's always a huge turnout, and so there's always people needed to come help, just bring a smiling face and pass them out, and people are always super excited to get them, so it's always a really cool day. And yeah, that's the big thing coming up, and as far as today, we're just going to sing a couple more songs, and then Trent is going to bring the message. So if you don't care to stand back up, we'll sing a couple more songs.
You
thank you for this time that we can spend together and looking through your word. And I pray that as we sing this next song, we sing it to you and we listen to the words and know that we are never alone. You're always with us. And we thank you for that. In Jesus' name, amen.
Another way when the Turn right at 500 feet. Well, that was your exit back there. No, silly, your other left. Maybe stop playing with the radio and drive the car. Are you even listening? I think we're going in circles. Recalculating, 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 recalculating.
All right, well, good morning. I've got a question for you guys this morning. Watching online, give us a thumbs up if you're joining us live. Real simple, okay? This is a deep one, though. We're going deep, early, 11 o'clock, 11:25. What do you want? What do you want? It blows my mind that my wife and I will literally plan vacations, trips. We'll take months trying to figure out where we're going to go, where we're going to stay. But then when it comes to your life, my life, it's like, just kind of let things happen. So you young people in the house, listen to me. I'm going to tell you something that no one ever told me. You have to decide what you want. You do, because granted, when you're in school, your parents telling you what they think you want or what you should want. But as you leave and really do this thing called life, no one tells you. And most of us just get in a routine and we just do our own thing. So my question to you, and this is really important, what do you want? What do you really want? Now, some of you, as I said that instantly, you're not going to say it out loud, but you're like, I know exactly. I literally just wish I want to be married so bad. Some of you are like, Trent, I want to not be married anymore so bad, right? So you're like, I want kids. Some of you walking in, putting your kids in the nursery are like, you can borrow these for a week if you want, right? It's not. So, but what do you really, really want? Now, this might be the first time in the history of any church we're going to quote a great spiritual movie called Scarface, right? I mean, just got a warning. If you haven't seen Scarface, don't watch it unless it's on A&E and like edited, because it's like language is terrible, but it is kind of a classic. But there's a part of Scarface that's really interesting. They're in the car. Manny's talking to Tony, and Manny says, and this is pretty good, he says, I say be happy with what you got. And Tony has this phrase, and he's like, no, he's not buying it. He says, Manny, I want what's coming to me. So Manny says, well, what's coming to you? And this is the clip. He says, well, what's coming to you, Tony? And Tony literally is about to tell him what he wants. And he literally, this is Tony's phrase, I want the world, Chico, and everything in it. Like, I want it all. That's what I really want. So again, as I want you to kind of think about as we hit this story, and just to kind of so we all know we're on the same page, let me give you the plan, okay, for the next 5 weeks. We're going to be in Luke 15. Same story. We're going to focus on the same story, but I was reading a book this summer, really good, interesting book, but in the middle of that, the guy made the comment that, this parable that all of us use because it's such an amazing story that Jesus told, but he said it's actually a journey we all take. And on that, there's all these different detours that every one of you in this room, on your way kind of back to God or finding God, this is the route that you're going to take. And when I saw that, I was like, man, that really is kind of powerful. So that's kind of our plan. But just to show you the plan, so the next 5 weeks, this one story, we're going to talk about how do we recalculate, right? And some of us, you might even be in a great place, and then life happens, or you make a decision. Next thing you know, you're back 3 steps, or you've made 3 different detours, and now you got to figure it back out. But just so you know, super fast, the Recalculate series, so next 5 weeks, starting now, week 1, we're going to recalculate to longing. So this is that question, man, there's got to be more. So if you're here this morning, you're watching online, or you watch this later on today, and you really have honestly kind of just literally lied in bed, or you've been sitting on the couch, and you're like, there's got to be more. I mean, tell me, surely there's more to life than just get up, same old, right? Eat the same old breakfast, go to the same old job, get in the same old car, do the same old thing at work, get in the same old car, do the same old thing on the way home, get home, eat the same old dinner, sit on the couch, watch the same old TV shows, go to bed, ask your wife, same old question. She gives you the same old answer, and you just keep going on and on and on, right? We all, there has to be more to that. Well, that's week 1. Week 2 is recalculate to or from regret. This is when it's like, I wish I wouldn't have made that mistake. I wish I wouldn't have started dating him. I wish we would have never been married. Down the line, I just wish I could start over. And then week 3, we'll talk about how to recalculate help, where we all realize I can't do this on my own. And the good and bad news for all of us in this room is I can't and you can't, right? That's just not how we're wired. And then recalculate to love, which is God loves me deeply. Hopefully you realize this. If you come any week, you know what my biggest goal is for you? I want you to know the good news of the gospel. That's what the gospel means, good news. And it really is just how much God truly, deeply loves you. So if nothing else, even if you walk away, you're like, he doesn't make sense, he's boring, I already fell asleep in the beginning because he went through this list, fine. But just know you're deeply loved. And then recalculate life. Now what's it mean to really live? And that's going to lead into a series I'm really excited about, September 10th, Epic Life. So as we get going here, how do you find the more you're looking for? How do we find the more? Because all of us, it says, all of us are kind of saying at some point, man, there's got to be more. There's got to be more to life than this. So here's the first part of the story we're going to look at today. Luke 15. Verse 11 says, to illustrate the point further, Jesus told them this story. A man had 2 sons. The younger son told his father, I want my share of your estate now before you die. So his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. A few days later, his younger son packed all of his belongings and moved to a distant land. And there he wasted all his money in wild living. About the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land, and he began to starve. Now, what I want to share with you, and we're going to look at kind of this idea of what we want, is the fact that you and I maybe long for something more is not a bad thing. That's right. It's not. I know some probably even church make you try to feel guilty. You shouldn't. That tells me you and I both are wired exactly the way God wired us. And God has wired us in a way that just says, I don't want you just to exist. I don't want you just to go to a job. I don't want you just to do the same. Like I literally created you on purpose and for a purpose. I believe that with everything. So every one of you here, God literally, Ephesians tells us that you are a masterpiece. So the imagery there that the writer used was literally like, think of, Mona Lisa, because like these amazing artwork, he's like, that's how God designed you. So that's good news, right? But so as we get into this, I want to think about the question I said earlier, what do you want? What do you really want? Let me say it again, just so you really take this in. What do you really want right now? Because I don't know what you truly want, but I'm going to share with you 3 things that I think is true about all of us in this room, okay? And we see it directly from this story. Here's the first thing. The real answer is, I don't know what your it is. I don't, but I know that you want it now. Is it right? If you guys that had kids or your kids now have grown up, you remember when they're little, remember going through the grocery store and literally you look over and what's your kid doing? It's like whatever they need, whatever candy, whatever's on the shelf, they have to have it, but they have to have it what? Now. And we don't get much different as we get older, do we? We really don't. I have a neighbor who, he actually, his mom will stop by the grandparents. They live like 2 blocks from us in Ironton. And this guy is awesome. He's about 20, 21 now. He was born with a lot of like heart defects. So he's had a lot of problems, tons of surgeries, which is now he has a pacemaker. But he roams the streets like all day. He's awesome. And he will come to our house and he'll hang out and he'll sit and kind of talk with us. But one of my favorite things is when he comes into our house, and I mean this, if he walks in our home, he turns into RoboCop with like analyzing laser vision. And I'll tell you why. Because he's constantly looking for something to ask me if he can have it. And not only does he ask me if he can have it, he wants it now. We were there like literally 2 weeks ago, and we're sitting in the living room, and he looks and he sees an Xbox. And he's like, you play with the Xbox? No, because I'm 44 years old, right? And he's like, so he's then asking my kids, you guys play with it? Like, no, we don't play with it anymore. And he looks back at me and says, can I have it? And I said, well, I need to talk to the boss, my wife. We'll see what we do. Maybe we can give it to you. And sure enough, he's like, no, I need it now. I've got to have it. I'm like, you just saw it for the first time. He walked to our garage once and found a BB gun and walked in and literally looked at me and said, can I have this gun? I'm like, no. He's like, oh, I need it so bad, right? And we all can kind of laugh at that, like, oh, being immature. But we do that. Whatever your it is, you're like, all of us in this room can have different its, but here's the thing that you and I do. We're like, I don't care. I just want it now. Not only do I want it, I have to have it now. Look at verse 12. It says, the younger son told his father, I want my share of your estate now, before you die. Now, when Jesus was telling this story, he'd been sitting around a group of Jewish people in that culture. He would have said, which is still harsh today, but in that culture, it would have been like, all of them were listening, like, this is the worst son ever. He literally looked at his dad and said, I can't wait for you to die. I don't want to be here. I don't like you. I don't like our family. I want to separate, but I need money, and you owe me money. Now, as soon as he told that part, everyone in the crowd would be like, oh, the father's going to tear him up, going to rip him a new one. Like, this is so, they were so excited. And Jesus, like, there's a curveball. He says, so his father agreed to divide his wealth between his sons. They all would have collectively like, oh, no dad does that. But this dad did, because he's a loving dad. He literally allowed this boy to do what he wanted to do. So the real answer is, I want it now. But what's the problem with that? And I want you to hear this. If you get what you want now, it may not be what you really want later. Do you know that? If you get what you want right now, it may and possibly and most likely will not be what you want later. You know how I can prove that? I'm going to share something with you guys who are about college age and younger. You're going to love this. One of the greatest things I've ever done in my life, I'm 44 years old. I went to one high school reunion in all my years. I think it was my 10 or my 15. And in that moment, never in any other factor of my life have I ever felt so strong. God, thank you for unanswered prayers. And you guys that aren't graduated yet, you don't get this. But when you come back to your 10 or 15-year high school reunion, here's what you realize. That one who was so hot, now she's so not, right? I mean, you're like, oh my gosh, I remember thinking like, oh, I have to marry her. And then you're like, God, thank you that I did not marry her. There's another girl who's like quiet, bookworm, like no one paid attention to her. It's like, she's very pretty now. My wife even made a comment. She's like, she is really pretty. And I thought, isn't that crazy? Like just 15 years ago, like, oh, not her, right? But you learn all these things we think we need. Oh, if I could just marry her, if I could just be with him, I just want to make sure I'm a doctor. Whatever it is, you look back and you're like, I'm kind of glad that didn't happen. What I wanted now, I really don't want later. And sometimes a loving parent actually doesn't give you what you want now. You know why? Because it's not good for you later. But I know this, we want it now. The second real answer is this. I want to do what I want to do. You see, really what I'm mad about is I'm not getting to do what I want to do. So I get mad at you. Me and my wife will fight because I'm not getting what I want. I get mad at God because I'm not getting what I want. I want to do what I want to do. Look at verse 13. It says, a few days later, this younger son packed all of his belongings. And what did he do? He moved to a distant land. I got to get away from this house so I can do what I want to do. Now, I shared this story with my wife yesterday. And she looked back at me and said, that's the saddest story I've ever heard in my life. Granted, she's also an emotional mess right now. She's pretty sad about everything. But I will say this. I want to share with you a guy. This is pretty interesting. Glenn Wolfe, okay? He passed away in 1997, a year after I graduated high school. Glenn Wolfe was a Baptist minister in California, okay? Why are we showing this picture? That's his wife, okay, right? Here's where it gets interesting, though. He's in the Guinness Book of Records because that actually is one of his wives. He's been married 29 times. Holds the record. 29. Now think about that. Maybe he's a super... I don't know anything about him. I've read some stories about him. But maybe for him, he just was really looking for a relationship. But he wanted that perfect marriage. I want a wife who's going to do this. I want to do... Maybe he was selfish and he just always wanted to do what he wanted to do. Right? But you think about that. The problem is if I want to do what I want to do, then I'll probably end up where I don't want to be. You see, if I continuously do what I want to do, what I've learned in my life is I usually end up in a place I don't like. I don't like it at all. And you know, if you really look back at your life, you know the exact same thing is true. Now, this is the part that my wife said was so sad. In July of 1997, he passed away, and that was the article from the Los Angeles Times. Most married, but little missed. 29 marriages, not one spouse who was alive showed up. No kids showed up, except one. And they said that was one who, the article basically says, begrudgingly went because they needed someone to be at his funeral. Now think about it for a second. The guy who was so wrapped up, obviously in some sort of trying to figure out relationships, ended up completely opposite of probably what he dreamed of. Why? Because when I do what I want to do, I almost always end up where I don't want to be. This same thing for him. He's like, I'm going to Disneyland. It's going to be so good. I'm going to do my thing. Girls, parties, the music. I mean, it was like a Snoop Dogg video. Like every second, just gin and juice. He's living it up. I'm doing what I want to do. But as we're about to see, he doesn't end up where he wants to be. So the last one, this sounds the same, but it's not. The real answer is, third one, last one. I want to get my way. You see, if you don't let me get my way, even though I'm 44, I do what all of you do and what literally 5-year-olds do. I pout, right? Because we don't like it when we don't get our way. Why? Because my way, and you guys know this, my way is what? The best way. My way is the right. Are all of you not smart enough to see? This thing I can't get over with my wife and my kids. How come they can't see that my way is always the smartest and the best way and the right way to do everything? You know why I think that about that? Because it's my way. But that's not how life works. The real answer is I want to get my way. Last part of the verse says, there he wasted all his money in wild living. I'm getting my way finally. And about the time his money ran out, a great famine swept over the land, and he began to starve. Now, one of the benefits, my wife who's running the camera, I always say that so you guys can look at her and make it awkward. But one of the benefits of my wife running the camera, always, or one of the benefits of me, not her, she can run the camera if she wants to or not, being married to her, is she is a middle school reading English type teacher. She has names for it like ESL, LSE, LSD. I don't know. She's got all different names. But whatever her name is, I know that she teaches reading, right? Middle school. Here's the thing, though. What you guys don't know is how I get tortured is my wife will be reading a book with kids at school, and if she doesn't like it, I don't hear about it. But if it's a good book, I'm going to hear about it. I'm going to hear about it so much that while we're eating at night, if it's just us, she's going to tell me about the whole book, right? So I've learned when she gets ready to tell me something, I just say, I've already read it. Just read it this week. I love it, right? To kind of get off. But I remember like a few years back, she told me they read The Monkey's Paw, a little short story. And if you don't know about The Monkey's Paw, and this I think goes along so well, but it's such kind of a cool story. The story is there's this monkey's paw. It has magical powers. If you get it, you get 3 wishes. But everyone who gets it, when they give it to somebody else, they're like, you don't want it. And that person's always like, no, I do. 3 wishes, anything you want. Anything you want. I get to finally get my way. And the story goes that a guy hands it. He's like, he's all devastated. He's like, you don't want it. And this family's poor. And they're like, no. So the first wish is they ask the monkey's paw, they're like, give us 200 pounds. I think it's in England. So it's like, a lot of money. They're poor. And sure enough, the next morning, they find out their son dies in a work accident. And they get a knock on the door. And here it is, someone from the company. And they're like, here, in payment of your son passing away is 200 pounds. And they realize, sometimes what I want isn't really what I want. Sometimes the things that I think that I have to get my way end up, and that's the problem with this. If I get my way, I often get in my own way. And it's the same for you. You know this is true. But here's the thing. I think these questions are important when you start thinking about what do I really want then? What do you really want? Well, I whatever it is, I know I need it right now. Number 2, I want to make sure I'm always going to do what I want to do, and I better get my way or I'm going to be really ticked. Right? That's what we all know about kind of inside of us. Well, a guy who wrote most of the New Testament, his name was Paul. In Romans chapter 7, verse 15, it's really good. He says this. He says, I don't really understand myself. Now, some of you here who are like really into your feelings and your emotions, you're an emotional person, okay, this should be your life verse. Okay, if you're going to get married one day, you need to put this so your husband or wife can look at it and be reminded. Because if you're a teenage girl, this is your life verse, right? I don't really understand myself. But what he says is really profound. He says, for I want to do what's right. Like, there's even things I know would be good for me, but I don't do it. Matter of fact, there's things I know I shouldn't be doing. I'm miserable after I do them, but guess what? I keep doing them. Like, I can't even figure myself out. And what he's talking about, and we said this last week if you're here, this flesh concept, like I have these principles, this mentality that I've kind of grown up operating out of, where I've got to get my way. I've got to get it now. You better do things my way or we're not doing it at all. I'm taking my toys and going home. See, he's like, but I've realized this isn't working. I'm even confused because the things I want, I know are not good. Paul's struggling. I like the Lawrence County Fair. My wife, my kids love it. I just like it, okay? But we usually camp there. Well, a few years back, I remember I had a family member that had to leave, and they left me in the care. I don't know why. I don't know why my wife was in charge of this. They left me in the care of their 2 boys, my nephews. And as they were leaving, they gave me like $150 for food that whole day. So you know what I did? Because I'm a good carekeeper, Good Friday morning, right? I look at the 2 little boys and say, what do you want to eat for breakfast? And they both, in unison, they had thought it out, said, cotton candy. And I said, well, I've got $150 burning a hole in my pocket. Sounds like a good idea, right? So we eat breakfast, cotton candy. You know what happened? At lunch, I said, okay, now we're going to eat. What should we eat? You know what they yelled in unison? Cotton candy. I said, excellent idea. We still have money left. Let's do that. So we drank a lot of Mountain Dews, ate a lot of cotton candy. Now, this is going to blow your mind. You know what they wanted for dinner? They were still feeling the cotton candy. Now, I might have stretched that story just a little bit, but when mom comes back, what happens? It's amazing. These kids are not full. They're sick. They're climbing off the walls, and they don't feel good. Now, think about that for a second. The thing they had to have literally did not fill them up, didn't benefit them, and actually made them not feel good. And I got to thinking about that. That's us. I just want you to make sure that whatever you kind of sit down and think through, this is what I want in life, that it's not cotton candy. That it's not something that really at the end of it, when it's all said and done, everyone's going to be like, really wasn't worth it. I want you to kind of hear this phrase, seeking more may thrill, but it will never fill. Seeking more may thrill all day long. It's shiny, it's exciting, but it's never going to truly fill you. Why? Because God's designed you with basically this void that has to be filled through Him. That's just how God designed us. And until you get that, you're going to chase so many other things. Paul, in the very next chapter, he goes through kind of his whole spiel. We won't read it all. But he gives us kind of the secret. He says, I want you to understand this is how this all matters. So here's the secret. He says, so you have not received a spirit that makes you fearful slaves. Instead, you received God's Spirit when He adopted you as His own children. Now, what he's about to say is so controversial. He said, now we call Him Abba, Father. The translation of Abba literally means daddy. Now, I grew up with all boys. We don't say that. My wife, all female home, they still say it. Mommy, daddy. I'm like, you guys know you're like 40 and 50 years old, right? It's kind of creeping me out, like, hey, mommy, hey, daddy, right? And they say it like that. I'm making fun of them, right? For me, it's like, hey, it's my mom, it's my dad. My wife's even turned in, this I didn't say in the first service, this is even getting creepier. Now she's turned in where she says dad talking about me. And I get confused. She's talking to the kids. She's like, well, you know, dad said. I'm like, where's your dad at? Oh, you're talking about me. So when I'm talking to my kids, I'm always like, your mom, right? Because there's 2 moms in my life. There's my mom and there's your mom. So I make sure I say your mom. So as a dude, I'm not going to lie, I don't really love that. But here's what's so profound. Because Paul is saying, listen, the God of the universe, the all-power God of the universe, the most important thing He wants is for you to realize that He's not even dad. You can have people have bad relationships with their parents. Who's that? Oh, I guess that's my dad. But a little kid who loves his father, what's he say? Daddy, daddy. Paul's like, this is who God is for you. So as we kind of gear down today, I want to ask you a question. Online, you can answer it too if you want, but I got to warn you ahead of time, it is a trick question. I want you to think about this. And hopefully, if nothing else, this kind of makes this whole longing make sense. What does a good parent want from their kids? Think about that for a second. Let's make it even better. Let's go extreme. Let's talk about, some of you in here are like, I feel like I'm a great parent. You go. I don't. I'm mediocre at best, but good job for you. Like, I'm a great parent. What does a great parent want from their kids? What do they want? I would argue, literally, what does a great parent want from their kids? My wife, she loves Friday Night Lights on Netflix. I'm not making this up. I think she's watched the whole series, like seasons 1 through 10. That's all she puts on. As soon as she gets home, if nothing's on, she just watches Friday Night Lights. I come home from work, Friday Night Lights. Get ready to go to bed. Friday night, like if she's going to watch anything, that's what she watches. And she's nice. She's like, you can watch anything else you want. You want to watch anything? I don't really have anything in mind. Good. Friday Night Lights it is. But we were watching like season 2 or 3, and the new quarterback comes in, and he's really good, and his dad is like over the top. I mean, literally, it's psycho. And he's like getting mad at his boy. He's losing his mind because he had a bad pass. Like crazy. But here's what I thought. As I was watching that, I was like, why is that weird? Why would every one of us watch that scene? If I could show it right now, you'd be like, that doesn't seem right. You know why? Because you're seeing a parent who's trying to get something from the kid. If you ever watch a parent who's like living through their kids, and I know all of us can be guilty of this at times, but it's like, oh my gosh, my kids is what? But it's like you're literally living your life through it. We're all kind of like, that doesn't seem right. Why? Because we know deep down that's a parent trying to get something from their kids. I know of a young lady who, exceptional human, and she literally, her mom will call her begging for money. Mom's in a bad place, and it's heartbreaking. But as I watch her, here's what hits me. I'm like, it's not right. You know why it's not right? Because that's not a good parent. No offense. So what does a great parent want from their kids? The answer is nothing. A great parent always wants something for their kids. You know what Jesus said? He said, some of you try to be good parents, and this is what you do in life, but let me tell you about the greatest parent, my dad. And he got ready to pray. They're like, hey, Jesus, teach us to pray. And he said, okay. And he said, Daddy. You see, people lost their mind back then. They're like, you can't refer to God like that. And Jesus said, no, you don't understand. That's the exact relationship he wants with us. That's why he told this parable. It's literally a picture of sons with a daddy. Now, as weird as that is to say, I think that's the important part for us to get. Now, I'm going to share this before we close, just so it'll keep you from asking me questions later. Fair enough? So you can just get the whole story. But I know as I say this, my wife and a girlfriend, and everybody's going to start crying, so they can just leave if they need to. But here's what I share with you, my son. So my son, told you last week, leaving this past Friday to go to school. So Monday, crazy day, my daughter's at the beach. She's living her best life. We don't know why we're always having to go through this junk, and she's always on vacation, but we'll figure that out later. So my daughter's on vacation. My wife has to go pick up her mom and dad, who's at the Ohio State emergency room, to bring them home. So I can't remember where I was at this point, but I get a text from my son, who, this is like 3, 4 o'clock, who's literally working out with a friend, and it's literally a link to WSAZ that has his college, and then below he just put, literally 2 words, he just put, oh boy. Oh boy. So I'm like, whatever. So I click on the link and read it, and sure enough, as I'm reading it, I'm like, his school, the school that he's going to, literally shut down that day. I've never heard anything like that in my life, right? Now, I wanted to tell him because that was the school he chose, but I didn't. I wanted him to know how powerful my prayers were, right? If you don't do what I want, I pray, and I literally shut down universities. It's powerful, right? I didn't. But this is the true part. So I'm like, hey, meet me at the house. We'll sit down. We'll talk about this. So we sit down. But here's what I want you to hear. And this isn't like it's nothing. It's just how life works. But we're sitting down, and it's like he realizes everything you've done, everything we've had planned, literally by snapping our fingers. This is almost like COVID. It's gone. Completely gone. And so I said, I just need to ask you one question. And it was just me and him, so I knew he's rattled. I know his head's spinning. But I said, what do you want to do? Like, do you want to maybe go to OU Southern, go to Shawnee with your sister, maybe take a year, figure it out, maybe try to play? And I said, but here's basically the question. Do you want to try to play football this year or wait till next year? And he didn't hesitate. He was like, I want to try to play now. I said, okay. That means we got to get on the horn. Like, we got to get busy because it's 5 o'clock on Monday, and everybody started at this point, minus a handful of places. Well, long story short, literally amazing. That night, girlfriend, family, sitting around, head coach calls on speakerphone, re-offered, great, there now. So it ended well for the situation. But the reason I'm telling you that is even completely different. In that moment, I can promise you, when I looked at my son sitting on the couch, there wasn't one part of me that said, I hope he does this for me. I could care less. And all of you parents know this. At the end of the day, your kids can take from you. Think about when you have babies. They are the most selfish little son of a guns. Are they not? They're the worst. They don't care about anybody. I mean, you can look at a 2-year-old and be like, I'm so tired. Please, in the name of God Almighty, if you love me, can you just shut up for an hour? And they will look you right in the eyes, knowing you're their only source of life, and just yell, right? Think about that. I mean, it's really true. We all know this. And you know what? Even as exhausted as you are, if someone came to you and said, well, I don't think you love your kid, you would fight them. You would literally fight. You're like, what do you? No, you don't ever say that. Now think about that. And that's the concept. What I think God and Jesus and Paul and so much in the New Testament is trying to get the picture of us is your Father in heaven is a perfect Father, and He doesn't want anything from you. He doesn't want you to jump through hoops. You see, religion in the Old Testament was very simple. It was like, I do good, and then God will be nice, or He'll at least like me and maybe do some good stuff for me if I do bad. And this is every religion in the world. But if I do bad, then God gets mad at me, and He's probably going to punish me. And Jesus comes along and He says, no, let me tell you how my Father works. By the way, my Father, who I call Daddy, completely changed the whole game. That's the good news. So much so that in John they said this. Said, for God so tolerated, no. God so just angry, no. For God so loved the world, all of us, that He demanded, that He asked us, no. For God so loved the world that He gave the most important thing in His life for you and me. See, that's what a perfect and loving Father does. So seeking more may thrill, but it'll never fill. Just like cotton candy. And I'm going to challenge you guys today, if nothing else, maybe this is the first redirection you need to take in your life. Maybe you're a couple steps past, great for you. You need to be reminded of this, though. As you're longing for something, just remember that's a good thing. God gave you that because He wants more for you. He just doesn't want you to chase the wrong more. Because I'm telling you, just like cotton candy, it's going to make you sick. It's going to make you feel unfulfilled. You're not going to get full. And you're going to be miserable paying a price you didn't want to pay for something that really isn't worth that much. So as we close today, I'm going to share something amazing with you guys. Do you know at the Lawrence County Fair that cotton candy was $9? Have you ever watched someone make cotton candy? Where they stretch it out and stuff, it's literally like a teaspoon of sugar. It's crazy. It's such a little, you're paying so much for something that's never worth it. Don't do that with your life. Don't pay for something that when you look at the end, you're like, you know what? It wasn't worth it. Make sure you know what you really want and chase that. So let's pray, if you would. If you would join me just real quick. Close your eyes. Look down at the ground. If you're online, if you're driving, don't look down. Look at the road. The rest of you can close your eyes. But here's what I want to do as we close today. I want you to just honestly kind of think through. What do I want? What do I really want? And the reason I want you to ask the question, what do I really want? I want to make sure that you're not just chasing the wind. That you're not chasing something like cotton candy. And some of you, it's a great thing. And I believe maybe God's probably put that in your heart. But then we have to kind of slow down and say, whatever it is, I want it now. I want to get my way. And I want to do whatever I want. And like we saw in this story, if you choose that route, which most of us want to, as we long for more, we end up alone and hungry. Why? Because there's only one who can truly fill us. There's only one who loves us more than we could ever imagine. So this morning, I'm going to ask you to do something if you would. If you're online, you can give me a thumbs up, or you can email if you need us to reach out to you. But just in this room, I'm going to ask you to come forward, stand up, do anything weird. But maybe you're in a pretty tough spot right now. Maybe you just feel like, I mean, literally, I think there's got to be more than what I'm doing. You're longing for more, and you don't even know what that more is. I'd just like to pray for you. If that's you, just like to lift your hand. I'd love to pray for you. Thank you. Anybody? Thank you so much. Thanks. Anybody else? Just let me pray for you. Like, I'm struggling. I am. Thank you. God, I do pray for this group of people, this amazing group of people, the generosity that people give so much to help so many. I pray for those who are struggling, those who maybe feel like they've kind of lost their way, that if nothing else, all steps aside, they would be encouraged that they have an incredibly loving Father that's waiting for them literally just to take one step back that way. Literally just turn back that way. As we're about to find out a little bit later, He's been waiting and looking the whole time because He loves us that much. So I pray for those people. I pray you would remind them that the longings they have are good. It means we're alive. It means we were created for more than what most of us settle for. And I also pray this morning for someone who just needs to come home for the first time. Maybe they can say a prayer something like this: Jesus, I know I've made a mess of things. I know I've sinned. I know my life is not where I want it to be. But I'm asking you this morning to save me. Forgive me. Here's your prayer. Jesus, give me new life. Fill that void that can only come from you. Now, before we dismiss and before you open your eyes and we say amen, I just want to ask you this morning, someone here online, again, reach out to us. Man, we want to help you take your next steps. Get on the hub. But if you're here, here's what I'd love for you to do this morning. If you would, just so we can celebrate, because literally the Bible tells us all of heaven celebrates that one moment, that one person who barely turns back. It tells you this morning, if you would, just lift your hand. Say, Trent, for the first time in my life, I asked Jesus to give me new life because He loves me that much. That you just lift your hand. All we want to do is celebrate. Let's hold it up for just a second, just so I acknowledge it. Awesome, awesome. Jesus, so thankful for what you continue to do, the lives that you change. Thankful for this group. Thankful that we get to come each week and celebrate the good news of the gospel. That you love us more than we could ever imagine. Truly, you sacrificed all so we could have life in you. And it's not that as we take bad turns in life, like every parent in here, it's not that we're angry or we've lost love for our kids. We're heartbroken because we know that they were created for so much more. As our perfect Father, you remind us we were created for so much more than to waste our lives on cotton candy. We ask these things in your name, and amen. Hey guys, have an amazing week. Grab a backpack if you don't have one. We'll see you next week for week 2 of Recalculate. Hey,